everybody, Holly Dro here, and welcome to my channel. As you've probably seen from the title and or thumbnail, this is going to be a video showing my process of how I made my mermaid piece this year. So, let's get started. So the plan began back in April 2023. That way I could have some time to figure out what exactly I wanted to do before May rolled around and actually have enough time to work on it. After looking at the official mermaid prompt list on their website, I got inspired to do the 7th entry, which was Merfairy, and then did some brief sketches. Off camera, I tried taking reference photos of myself and then using Clip Studio Paint's 3D model so that I could get the right position, and then later in the right angle after I drawed roughly the basis of what I wanted the flower shape to be. As for the wings, I decided to draw them dragonfly-like because I thought that would be kind of interesting. The type of lily I was trying to sketch out was a fragrant water lily because that was the type of lily I was more familiar with. And as you can see by the multiple attempts, my brain had a hard time figuring out how to draw the front petals while still being able to see the Merfairy clearly, and making sure too that the flower looked a little more realistic opening up. Thankfully, the base petals weren't as hard. Originally, I thought of just having one tree in the background, but I thought maybe that was a little too plain. So I attempted sketching out some bushes near the water, then switching to having a few trees. Also experimenting some grass brushes off camera. While still not happy with the background, I went back to the Merfairy to work on the more detailed rough sketch, since I had in mind of how I wanted her hair and top to look. Going back to the background, I tried sketching out my original idea that I had in mind. It just felt better because now you would be able to see the morning rays more clearly peeking through. Off camera again, I tested out different brushes to see which ones I prefer to use for the line art. Eventually deciding just to continue using the pencil brush for the line art. For all the line art, I did them in vector layers. That way I could go back and correct the lines later if I needed to. Whether if it was cropping continued joined lines or anything overlapping, to readjusting the position to make them look more smooth. Back when I was making the grass, what I did was using the pencil brush and stroked upwards in kind of randomish directions. That way, when I went back here to the line art, then I could actually trace the outline of the pencil sketches to make it look like they're actually blades of grass of random sizes. And because of the thicker areas of green, I had to go back to the rough sketch layer with a brown to make more grass blades. That way I could actually see. After adding the lines for the dirt, I readjusted all the grass line art that was at the front and pushed them back up. That way you wouldn't see so much overlapping against the ground slash dirt line art. Otherwise, once I go back and start coloring them all, you're gonna see the overlap of green and brown right on top of each other. I thought that looked a little messy. Speaking of coloring, after the line work was done, I went off camera to look up some reference material and grab some colors off from images to see roughly what the colors would be, and then painting them on a separate layer, which I will be calling the reference color layer. That way, if I lost anything, I can just go back, eye drop, and I got the colors back. For coloring, I wanted the painting to have more of a watercolor feel to it, without having to physically hand paint through every single area, because I thought that would take up more time, and using the bucket tool is just more efficient. So I tried filling out the middle part of the lily with white, and then using the watercolor brush on top with a yellow, just to experiment. But then I quickly remembered, duh, Holly, it's watercolor. The watercolor layer is going to overlap with the color underneath. So I quickly scrapped that idea and filled the areas in with the desired color with the bucket tool, and then shade and highlight with the watercolor brushes. But I did paint with the watercolor brush right over the wings and the tail fins, That way it would give them more of a transparent look to them. And then erasing outside the lines. I did a little bit of experimenting on the Merfairy's hair with a lighter color with the wire brush tool, just to see if the highlighting would look better that way. And then shaded in the areas where I thought the shadows would be on the Merfairy's skin and tail. After a little bit, I moved on to making the actual sun rays, so I could give myself an idea where the light was actually coming from. This led to experimenting with the soft bleed watercolor brush, some blending tools, and layer modes. Finally deciding to use the add in brackets glow layer mode. Then I went to highlighting the areas where I think the sun would be shining on. Just the regular watercolor brush. Also going back to making light art for the grass in the background because I almost forgot about it. Next, I made the watercolor brush in its biggest size and then covered the whole water lily in the shade color while being clipped to the lily layers themselves. Then went back to erasing the areas where I think the sunlight would be showing. Later, putting on a second layer of shade. Then I did the same thing with the Merfairy after deleting my previous attempts. But again, I was having some difficulty visualizing where the sun would be hitting the Merfairy at her angle. So I went back to the reference color layer and just drew some arrows to help guide me. On the tree trunk, I made some random dashes while going in the direction of where I think the bark would go. That way it would give me a rough guide to where the top bark layer would be. Then colored with a darker color with a watercolor brush to make the underbark lining. But for next time though, I will start with having the underbark as the base color and paint with the lighter bark on top. That way I don't have to worry about correcting where the watercolors overlapped like I did here. For the general tree trunk and the grass shading, what I did was have the layer of watercolor brush marking halfway, quarter, eighth, and 16th. Then using the wet bleed tool to soften the distinct lines and create smooth transition by making strokes towards the right side of the canvas. And then for the background grass, doing the same thing, but going in a downward direction. For the ground, I left this coloring last because I couldn't figure out why I didn't like it. But by this time I realized it was because it looked too ribbon-like. So I readjusted the line art because I made it vector layers and made it more fan out into a point to make it look like the water actually has softened it into a point, which made me so much happier. Then came to the part of making the water reflection. Well, first I made a copy of the grass, ground, and tree layers, also rasterizing the vector layers. Then rearranged and merged them together into two groups, which were front, containing with the tree trunk, and then in the back corner, where it was just the grass. Erased the background grass, then flipped over the remaining parts horizontally. Using the liquefy tool, I used it to slowly shift the sections to sort of line up with the waterline art. I was really stretching it with the left-hand side. Next was clipping the reflection to the water-based color, then attaching a masking layer. Later using the soft eraser and the wet bleed brush on the masking layer to create a fading transition. Then all that was left to do was clean up any areas that I missed. As the last little tweak, I attempted to include the Merfairy's left eye in the line art, but it didn't really make much of a difference seeing her bangs were right on top, so I just ended up leaving as it was. And that concludes the paint process. And honestly, seeing this is technically my second finished digital illustration, I'm pretty happy with it. I would also like to thank you guys so much for sticking around and watching and or listening to the whole video and making it to the very end. I really appreciate it. Hopefully my voice wasn't too irritable or squeaky. If so, I apologize. It's still weird hearing it myself as well. Anyhow, thank you so much again for watching, and I hope you guys have a good day, evening, and night to come. Bye!